Breaking tonight, California just rejected the president's Obamacare fix. That's the largest state to do so far. More than 1 million Californians who lost the insurance plans that many of them liked and wanted to keep just found out they cannot get them back. Trace Gallagher has the breaking news live in our West Coast newsroom. Trace?
And Megan, it wasn't like this was a nail biter. I mean, the Board of Covered California, which is the state exchange, voted unanimously to reject the president's plan to extend these individual insurance policies. And 20% of the nation's individual policies are in California. Covered California says the biggest concern with extending the cancel plan is that way too many of the young invincibles, the young and healthy people, would stay out of the market. And without them in the risk pool, the rates in 2015 would skyrocket. But even the head of Covered California admits that either way, some people will get hit. Listen.
This is an unfortunate piece of the law that actually means some individuals are going to see financial impacts, that we want to give that information so it's a long-term fix, because the only thing we could have done is to delay a problem.
And it's not like the young and healthy are actually banging down the door to get signed up. Through October 30th, 30,000 plus had signed up, but only less than 7,000 were between the ages of 18 and 34. Experts say they need a lot more than that. Still, the insurance companies support rejecting the president's plan. Blue Shield saying, quote, "We believe it is in the best interest of Californians to stay the course and not extend non-Affordable Care Act compliant plans after 2013. But the state insurance commissioner, Dave Jones, a Democrat and huge supporter of Obamacare, calls this a rebuke to the president. Listen.
They're losing their doctors and their hospitals. In some cases, they're being steered to policies with lower benefits, and they're being hit with significant rate increases. Allowing them to renew, as the president has called for, will not harm the exchange.
We should note that 200,000 of the 1.1 million policies that were canceled will get a 2-month extension, Megan, simply because their cancellation notices were sent out too late. Megan.
All right, Trace, thank you. Joining us now is Charles Krauthammer, a Fox News contributor and author of the #1 New York Times bestselling book, Things That Matter, 3 decades of passions, pastimes, and politics. Charles, great to have you here on set.
Thank you. Pleasure to be in your new home.
All right, so 1 million people in California aren't going to get any fix from the president's fix, and that the insurance officials have come out and said delaying the transition just delays the problems. It's actually going to make a bad situation worse if we complicate it further. Meantime, that is happening in some other states, and it's becoming more and more chaotic. Your thoughts?
Look, when the president proposed the supposed fix, the revocation of the cancellations, it was a fraud and a sham from the very beginning. And the reason is, A, it's almost impossible technically for the insurers to end up doing this, particularly in the short time frame. Second, because it undermines the financial underpinnings of the health exchanges themselves, as we just heard in the report from Trace. And third, it is illegal. The law, you know how Democrats talked about those awful Republicans trying to overturn the law of the land? The law of the land is unchanged. It says it is illegal to sell an insurance policy that doesn't include all the bells and the whistles required under Obamacare. It remains illegal. The law was never changed. The regulations are unchanged. Imagine if an insurer issues a policy under that. It is illegal under the law. What's he going to do if he's sued? He's going to say, well, Obama in the press room said otherwise. It's amazing, the flouting of the law and illegality in this. It isn't even an issue. But the president knew it wouldn't happen. It was simply a way to make it look as if he was trying to undo the damage and to remake the promise he broke.
How does that provide him real cover, though? Because now we've got millions of people who are finding out the fix is no fix at all. And then we have other people who tend to be in red states where they are saying, all right, you can try the fix if you want, who are going to be kept off of the exchanges at least for a year, but then after a year, they're right back in the same boat again.
He doesn't have an answer, and that's why they're trying to temporize. They do the so-called the phony fix one day. A week later, you call in a lot of liberal bloggers, broadcasters, and you say, look, we have a new strategy. We're not going to attack Republicans. We'll put the blame for this whole debacle on Republicans, on the insurers, on whoever, George Bush perhaps. He's always available. But that's not going to work either. In the end, I mean, this is the wonderful thing about reality. In the end, it wins. Obama's been the rhetorical president ever since he was nominated. And with rhetoric, he overcame a lot of stuff. He created a world around him. At a certain point, the rhetoric has to yield to reality. And in the unfolding of Obamacare, we're seeing reality trump rhetoric. There's nothing he can say because the reality is going to be obvious to anybody who gets a cancellation notice, anybody who loses their doctor.
And yet they're still focused on rhetoric and on messaging, supremely focused on messaging. And we've seen it in recent weeks, as maybe the viewers have noticed, maybe not. They have made clearly a concerted effort to change the language from Obamacare to the Affordable Care Act. Watch.
I like the term Obamacare. We passed Obamacare. Yeah, I like the term. We passed it. Because I do care.
Obamacare's on my list. I apologize, Mr. President. I use that term with all respect, by the way. Good.
Locked in tight on Obamacare.
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 Until it's working really well, and then they're going to stop calling it Obamacare. They're going to call it something else.
They're losing their existing insurance plans under Obamacare.
Played us on Obamacare.
Obamacare fiasco.
Obamacare fiasco. Never-ending Obamacare fiasco.
Obamacare. Implement and improve the Affordable Care Act. 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 Affordable Care Act.
The 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 Affordable Care Act, as I call it, as always called it.
Oh, your thoughts on that?
Arose by any other name. There's no getting away. He's a man who's lived by rhetoric, but at this point, there's nothing he can do about it rhetorically. And they can't do anything about it on the ground because it is an avalanche rolling down the hill, and they can't stop it. They started it. It has a life of its own, and it's going to play itself out under its own rules of gravity.
Charles Krauthammer, great to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Number one. Pretty good. Well, to the more than 1 million in California who lost their plans, the administration shared a new message today. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's the media's fault and the Republicans' fault. And it's also the fault of the insurance company. We'll show you that.